Ryan, you have to do a countdown because that's how we
That's
do these now.
everything.
Yep.
All right. Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Abernathy, and welcome to episode 5 of the Pixel Pusher podcast. Along with me is my awesome co-host Ryan Levac.
Hey everyone.
Cool, and our awesome guest Somar.
Hey,
Wait, why does
Nice.
he get too awesome?
Because
because
he's
of
the
awesome.
guest, man. That's how we rope him in. Give him a little sugar coating.
Okay.
So cool. Okay. We haven't done one of these in a while, so we're all gonna be a little bit rusty. Life's been getting kind of busy. Small update on Ryan's end. He doesn't want me to talk about it, but he's been busy with.
First
What have
thing.
you been busy with, Ryan?
I've been working full time, so I
Yes.
can't do much
Congratulations, full
in
time,
that sense.
real deal game artist Ryan Levesque here.
Remember when we were both little students when we first started this, Dylan?
So long
Look
ago.
at you guys.
We've come so
Little
Congratulations.
far,
student
Hell
boys.
yeah.
and now Somar's here to experience this transition with us.
Yeah, it's important.
FYI, like going into this episode, I've been sick for quite a while, so I'm going to be coughing. I'm sorry in advance. I'll try and edit that out. Um, but we do have Somar here. Somar's a cool dude. He's working with me right now. And the theme of this podcast is going to be big studio versus small studio, since this guy's got some experience with a bit of both of that. So we kind of wanted to just sort of dive in and ask you off the bat. What is the most enjoyable part of each of those situations?
Okay. I guess at a smaller studio, you usually have more artistic freedom, and you get to kind of do a lot of things outside of your the main focus. For example, if you're an environment artist, you get to usually tackle all aspects of the environment, whereas in a bigger studio, you're usually, you're focused on one thing, like you just model or you just texture, or you just do the level art.
Mm-hmm.
So in the smaller studio, that's definitely a really huge plus if that's what you like doing. At a bigger studio, the things I enjoy the most are probably I guess learning. Like you do learn a lot more at a bigger studio just because there's a lot of veterans usually, and you can just ask people a lot of things. Like at a smaller studio, maybe it's usually not as experienced as a bigger studio, so they may not have um, really experienced artists. Sometimes they do, but in my experience, it's usually uh, lesser experienced artists kind of figuring things out together.
Yeah. Did you also get like hardcore imposter syndrome when you moved over?
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know the best way to describe it. More or less, like you're surrounded by all these like super talented artists, these like senior artists, and you're just like, oh my god, like I don't deserve
Oh
to
yeah,
be doing the
dude.
same
Yeah, I
work.
feel I still do. I still feel like that. Like I feel like, damn, everyone's so much better than me at this.
I know, and then you like step back and you're all doing pretty much the same stuff,
Yeah.
more or less. I know what you mean. I'm still like the exact same way. Um, but cool then. Yeah. So, this is kind of a cool setup because Ryan has experience in a smaller-ish studio. I have experience in a bit of a bigger studio, and you have both. So I thought something we could do is kind of break down because a lot of people from the outside immediately gravitate towards, oh, I want to be in a large studio. Oh, I want to work on this big AAA game. But that's totally not the environment for everyone. Um, I was hoping we could kind of break down what sort of environment is best for what people, like based on our experiences. We should probably be able to outline that pretty well. Like when would a certain type of person jive better in a smaller studio, would you say?
Hmm. At a smaller studio, I guess if you're right out of school, it's a little less intimidating to join a smaller studio just because there's less people you have to deal with, and you can kind of form really good bonds with people, and like I said before, like learn together and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like at a bigger studio, it gets really intimidating sometimes. And
Yeah.
luckily, I haven't had this experience, but I know some people who have, and it's like trying to make friends at a bigger studio can sometimes be hard. Just because there's just so many people and you meet so many people every day,
Oh, I
and
feel that.
sometimes you don't interact with a lot of the same people all the time. So
Yeah, my like my first day was pretty much like I got introduced to like 70 people, and I'm just like, I don't remember
yeah, you're like,
I don't know
How
anyone's
can I
name."
remember all these names? Yeah.
My
I
my
didn't.
first day I got introduced to 7 people.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Ryan,
see,
like,
like, there's the huge difference already. Like what
oh,
you just said.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess Ryan, you have like a very similar situation. Like, how was it for you going from school directly to the studio you're at right now?
Whenever I first started, like it was like I knew one person. He was a friend of mine before,
Hmm.
and so I went in and I expected like, all right, stick with him, like talk with him. But literally the first day, like I didn't even have lunch with that man. I had lunch with another coworker. So yeah, it's like just going to school pretty much in terms of like meeting people. You're in this smallish group. It's as if you're with your classmates, kind of,
I still
in
kind of get
college.
that vibe. I don't know about you, Somar, but it kind of feels just like a big college where it's like you have your groups, you kind of stick with the same groups, but like
Yeah,
everyone's
it
somewhat
definitely feels like
familiar.
that more so for me at a bigger studio, I would say.
Yeah.
Like it feels like I'm just going to school and then lunchtime is
Oh,
lunchtime.
it's like high school. So like
Yeah,
there's
A little
honestly.
more for me.
nerds.
It's like more like a college setting than a high school, but
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand to go to the washroom or anything.
yeah.
Uh, but shit, Somar, we totally skipped over your origin story. Where did you come from, man? What do you do?
Oh,
Who is Somar?
I I went to college at George Brown, and I really wanted to make games. I didn't know what I wanted to do per se. Like I think a lot of people have this mindset of I'm gonna be a concept artist because I like drawing. So I'm gonna go to a game school. So I did that. I went to school and I realized I actually really like the production side more so, like after concept art in the game making pipeline. So I realized I liked modeling and texturing things and actually implementing them in the game. So during school, that was my focus.
Hmm.
After school, it was kind of hard to find like full-time jobs and full-time employment. So I was bouncing around small contracts, many different studios, and over time, that I guess that accumulated into like 3 years of experience. And now I'm finally at a bigger studio. So I guess that's my origin.
Nice.
Nice.
Um, so why then? Why games? Why even go to school in the first place for it?
Um, well, games because that just I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Like literally, like that's all I wanted to do since maybe I was 5 or 6 years old. Like the first time I ever played a game, I knew right there and then that I wanted to be a part of that creation process, I guess.
Hmm.
And yeah, like for me, that was just the one path. There was no other way. There's no other occupation for me that I can be interested in really. So I'm the kind of guy that like if I set a goal for myself, I try my best to accomplish it. So yeah, so I had that in my mind and that's all I wanted to do. So that's the reason for games. And the reason I went to school is because I was really like I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to make games, but I had no idea how they're made or what the process was. So I thought going to school would be a good idea to learn. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I had the same thing. Like I went into school. I'm like, oh, I want to be a game designer. I want to like be the brains behind making that stuff. Like all that kind of stuff. But then I like started 3D modeling and like texturing, and I'm like, hey, I kind of like this stuff.
Yeah,
So
So yeah,
I can
I feel
definitely
like a
see
lot
where
of
you're
people
coming
have that
from.
kind of mindset where like they want to do something and then they try and they're like, oh, I want to do something else, but similar, I guess.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I mean, I don't think it's really a big secret at this point that I'm not super gung ho about school for game art. Um, I think it's good in a lot of areas, but it needs to pick up the slack in a lot of others. But the one universal sort of praise I hear from it is when people, yeah, they know they want to do games, they're not entirely sure what they want to do, and then when they're sort of exposed to everything, it all sort of clicks and makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you recommend anything for people right now who are maybe just starting school? Or I even like, there's some videos I posted a couple years ago where I'd always sort of do like a reflection or a look back on each year of school, and those videos still get comments like every single week of people saying like, oh, do you recommend school? Or, oh, I'm in my first year, what should I do? Like, for people who are super interested and in the early stages of school, like,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
what would
So
you sort of say to them to sort of guide them a little bit better?
I guess if you're really not sure what you want to do, I think school can be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really know what you want to do and you really have like this path set out for yourself and you're like, this is what I want to do no matter what, school may not be that great. I think a lot of the online things may be better. Like if you're really good at keeping yourself motivated, I think school might not be as good. But if you don't know what you want to do, or if you kind of lack motivation to teach yourself, like I know for me, like I kind of don't like working on things unless I have to. So even though
I'm the
I'm really
same.
motivated, like it's hard for me to just start learning something by myself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so school would be good for that. Like it just kind of forcing you to, you have an assignment, so you better learn this.
Yeah, it's like proper structure, and
Yeah,
especially if like
exactly. Like,
for people who are coming right out of high school, it's like, dude, you're sometimes like
yeah, like
17
you have
years
no
old.
idea how to learn even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. You've been sort of like had your handheld forever.
Yeah. So if you enjoy that, then or that's something you need, then I think school can be good. But I do say like really research the program and even talk to some of the people who have graduated from that school and in a program that you're looking at,
Mhm.
because sometimes like the school may not be that great or like the curriculum may not be that great.
Yeah.
So definitely always do your research. Like I didn't I didn't really do that much research, and some of the classes in my school were kind of iffy. Some of them were really great and I did learn a lot, but yeah, like some of them I wish I hadn't have even gone to be honest.
Yeah,
It's
same
just
here.
a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has those kinds of things they just wish they didn't spend
Well,
any time on.
it'll never be perfect because it's so broad. Like you brought up before,
Yeah,
you thought you might even
exactly.
want to be doing concept art. It's like
Yeah, exactly. That's so like if you don't know what you're doing, the broadness is good, I would say.
it's good
Yeah.
until you know what you want to do. Then
Yeah,
it's
so
just easy.
usually I guess on average it takes people like the first year to know what they want.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
At
could
least
agree with that.
for me anyway. It took like after the first year I knew, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, around there.
So I think it's good to be broad in the first year, but when a program is still broad all the way through until like you graduate, I think that's really bad like program design or curriculum design, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
I always find it interesting because there's these people out there and they're asking like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. And yeah, school's a good option for that, but it's also, you can find these things online to at least get a taste for it.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like you run into the issue of not knowing where to look. Like I feel like people listening to this right now, they already kind of know they want to
Yeah,
do
that's
some
unfair.
form of environment art, right? But like I'm assuming Somar is in the same was in the same situation as me, like coming out of high school. I'm like, oh, games, that's what I want to do. Thing is, how do I do it? So I go to school to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
Because like
exactly.
culture, like at least in Canada, and I'm assuming it's the same in the U.S. Uh, they're like, oh, you want to figure out how to do this job? You go to school for it,
Yeah.
right? So I go to school, and then that's when I figure out the different ways to get into the industry.
See, that's why I'm not going to name drop right now, but there's a certain guy that we were both introduced to who's pretty good with foliage. That should be obvious enough who it is.
Yeah,
This guy is super interesting because he's all self-taught, um, and done stuff online to sort of get his information as well. But he makes incredible looking foliage, and he signed up for the same program as us, and immediately knew right away, like, oh, this is not it. Like, this is
yeah,
not like he already knows what he wants to do. It's not going to help him out, so he dropped out of
exactly.
it. And that's interesting because I want to see, like, in my mind, I have no doubt that he'll find work with his current skill set. Um, but I'd love to sort of get him on here at some point and like fully break that down. Like, how did
Yeah,
that all click? Um, Yeah.
I'm sure we could set something up with him.
Another plus for school actually is all the connections you make.
Hmm.
Like, for example, some of the people that work with us right now, Dylan, um, the reason they have that job is because they knew people who already worked there, or like one of the professors at their school also worked there.
Hmm.
So like making connections at school is a lot easier than if you're, learning at home by yourself.
Oh, for sure. It's
That is true. Yeah.
like it's not impossible, but it's such a massive helping hand. I there's this old podcast that I used to watch. I think it's kind of gone under since, but it was like the original game art podcast that I used to listen to. You can still find it pretty easily. It's called the Character Art Podcast.
Okay.
And it's all like the big character art juggernauts in the industry because there really aren't that many. Um, like character art is such a niche, small job. So it was maybe like 6 or 7 episodes, and they'd always talk about it. And one of the people was explaining how um, she went to school and it helped her, but she kind of didn't like that feeling of kind of like I'm paying to sort of get this social like extra bonus, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah, no,
but
it definitely makes sense. Like, but I mean, that's just the way it is,
yeah, like for me, it's just like I like it's whatever you earned it. Like if you're going out and you're meeting people, like for me, that's totally fair game. But I can see why some people don't like that.
Well, I feel like uh, in like small studios as well. Well, actually, also big studios, but in particularly small studios, you're all like kind of tight knit. You know everyone. One person could leave, move on, and go to a different studio, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you have connections at that studio. So you don't necessarily need like sure, like going to school helps getting connections and getting the connections for that first job, but also like that's another plus of small studio because like I'm trying to segue us back into the small studio big studio topic because we're talking about school
I know, I
a
know.
lot.
It always
But
comes up every single time.
yeah, anyways, yeah, so small studio, like let's say I know Jim, uh, Jim Bob, that's his name. I work with him, we have lunch every now and then. All of a sudden Jim Bob goes to work at, I don't know, Naughty Dog. All of a sudden Jim Bob, like let's say I go to GDC, meet up with Jim Bob. Jim Bob's there with his Naughty Dog friends. All of a sudden I'm acquainted with Jim Bob's friends
Oh,
at Naughty
totally.
Dog. So like,
Yeah, like
and then
even
those people can spread. Like I already know people at like, I don't know, 50 different studios now.
big boy
And it's
on
only been like
campus.
it's been only like what, a year? Not even
Yeah.
since I
No,
graduated.
it's true, especially
It
if you're
spreads like
staying on top of
wildfire.
it. Um,
That's the thing, though. You have to stay on top of it. Like, if you're not in school, it's definitely
Yeah,
way more challenging than if you're in school. Like, to get that first job, it's really tough if you don't know
yeah,
for
anyone.
sure.
like that's one thing I definitely don't give school enough credit for because it's like I know for a fact if I didn't go to school, I would be way further behind, specifically because of the sort of like mindset that it sort of forces you into. Because I sort of moved for school, and if I was staying in my hometown just working, I'd be goofing off way more than I
Yeah,
would.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's like plop me down in a place where I don't know that many people and get to work. Um, so that kind of worked out. We are getting some questions in the chat though that I think are a bit more related to what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
it's true.
Um, so we did talk a little about small studio versus big studio environment. I'm curious to hear more about the pipeline though, because with our pipeline, we're very much like you said before. Like you have a specific task, you get that one part of the task done, you hand it off to someone to sort of clean it up or finish it off or whatever. In a smaller studio, is it more like you're responsible for the entire thing? Like, or at what point do you hand an asset or environment off to someone else?
I think it depends on the studio and how many people you have there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of impossible to say. Like, every studio is so different in the way they do things, especially the smaller ones. Like, maybe at the bigger ones, the pipeline's similar, but at the smaller studio, it's so different that you can't really say. For me, for my experience, that the last studio I worked at before this one was a smaller studio, and yeah, I was the environment artist, and I had to do literally every aspect of the environment without any help, really. You're gonna
So
have times like that, and then sometimes you're gonna have, let's say you have 3 environment artists, so now you guys can kind of share the work and, give this guy who's stronger at, say, making foliage,
mhm.
that task, and maybe you're stronger at making uh, hard surface stuff, so you'll do that. Or this guy is really good at set dressing and level art, so you'll give him that. So it really depends on the studio.
Okay, so then I guess that's perfect because I have a question for both of you. I guess this sort of works for both of you. Because like at the start of the podcast, I kind of asked like who would this work for and like what's the benefit of working in a small versus big studio. And one of the things you said was more responsibility. Like you get to sort of contribute more and you have more say in things. But could that also like I'm sure there's been times where having that much responsibility is like terrifying. Like
Oh,
if you're
it's definitely stressful. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
like
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
in charge of the whole asset or the whole environment, like how does that work? Because I have almost no experience with that, and I can just sort of think about like there's times where you're working on your own personal work and you're like, oh shit, I need to look up a tutorial on this or like ask people in forums, and it's like if I knew that I was being paid for that time, I would feel terrible. So, like, how do you handle that? Like, what is that
Yeah, it's
expected?
definitely stressful. What you brought up is kind of perfect for that. It's like, it's kind of like you're working on a portfolio piece. Like you're not gonna know how to do everything, and I think it's unfair for the studio if let's say you're the only artist, for them to
Hmm.
expect you to know how to do everything. So I
Yeah,
think they're usually pretty understanding with that. So like, sure, you can definitely look things up, and if you're unsure how to do it, or yeah, but it's definitely absolutely stressful sometimes,
yeah,
in my
Yeah.
experience anyway.
What's
and then
great
for
about small studios though is that like you're put in those situations and you have to adapt and you have to learn how to do it.
mhm.
So like let's say like I can't really speak for big studio, but like at a small studio, you have your asset or like your environment or whatever you're working on, and then all of a sudden you hit a roadblock that normally people at a big studio wouldn't have to overcome because it's something like so specialized.
Right.
But you have to learn it yourself because there's no one that specialized at your studio.
Yeah, and you can't even go. Well, I guess in a lot of cases, you can't really go on Discord and message your buddies in like the Dynasty chat because it's NDA.
Yeah,
Because you can't just send a screenshot over; it's not gonna fly.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, in my experience, like of course, I think that's kind of just like a universal trait of people who work in the games industry is having to be flexible. But at least for me, like the biggest hurdle I've had to go over recently is learning 3ds Max. Like, I've always modeled in Maya. Um, But the benefit of that is like I'm sitting in a little group of people who've been using Macs for like 5, 10 years. If I have any question, I just tap them on the shoulder or message them in a chat, which I guess is kind of like a luxury compared to that.
Yeah, I definitely that's definitely the one of the reasons why I prefer working at a bigger studio, is just you have that convenience to learn something whenever you want. Really, you just tap someone on the shoulder, like, "Hey, can you show me how to do this?"
Hmm.
And that's awesome. That's something that I don't think you can ever get at a small studio, unless it's not really that small.
Yeah, exactly. There's been so many times that I just wish I could have gone up to like I don't know some really amazing artist and been like, "Hey, can you show me how to do this?" But
Well, I
instead,
mean,
you gotta like spend hours on the internet trying to
yeah.
figure.
Well, how many people are at your studio right now as far as art goes, Ryan?
I believe we have 5 artists.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 artists. We have really talented artists for the size of the studio,
Hmm.
but obviously, no one's the best artist. So
Yeah,
like, not everyone knows everything.
and
So
it's
there's
also.
always things that are like I am not able to figure out from my coworkers.
Mhm. I also find that when it's a smaller group, like this was me my first couple of weeks, it's like when it's a smaller group of people around you, you don't want to keep asking them questions because you're just like,
Oh yeah.
they're just going to
You
be
don't
like,
want to
is
be
this guy
that
useless? Like, can he not
guy.
figure it out? Holy shit.
I feel that way a lot, honestly.
I
I
felt
think most
so
people.
bad.
I think that's just like something you just kind of hard on yourself for. Like I'm sure a lot of people would understand. Like if they knew. for example, let's use you just learning 3ds Max. If they knew you don't really use it, I think they'd be pretty understanding unless they're an asshole.
Oh, I know, but even I mean like my first week or two where it's like I didn't know like anything, and there's some things like say, well, at this point you guys are all familiar with your workload, like how you submit things and all of that, but a lot of these systems are like tailor made or hyper specific to the workflow you do. But
Yeah.
if you use them day in and day out, you don't realize how alien that can be to people on the outside. So I was like asking questions like every 10 minutes. I'm just like I feel so bad for the people
Yeah.
around me.
Yeah, like I would be asking questions, and then like I would call my lead over because he sits right beside me. I'd call him over like, I don't know, 10 times a day, maybe.
Mm.
Like, obviously, some of the times it's just lead stuff like, "Hey, do you approve of this?" But like a lot of the time as well, it's like, "How would I do that?" And I feel like he thinks I'm an idiot sometimes,
Yeah.
Well, that's his
right?
job, right? It's his
Yeah,
job
it's his job.
not only to oversee the, hey, can you approve this, but also to like help you become a better artist.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really thankful for. Like my lead's really he's a great artist. And yeah, he doesn't call me out for being an idiot sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good though. You need to sort of have that reinforcement. If it's not going to be from like a larger community of people around you telling you to sort of like improve this or that, at least having one solid lead is good. I
Yeah,
guess it all
exactly.
kind of boils down to like if you're in a smaller studio, each person's role packs way more of a punch. So you sort of it's almost odd in the sense where it's like you have to be more qualified, um, because you're taking on so much more responsibility.
Yeah,
Like
it
a lead
definitely
Yeah.
needs to
forces
know
you
what
to
they're
grow.
talking
It
about.
forces you to learn how to grow on your own in a smaller studio, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Especially like some of them, you're not gonna have an art lead to like kind of help you out. Like at my last studio, we had like 2 artists and there was no lead artist or anything. So
Oh my.
kind of have to be your own critic and then kind of ask everyone in the studio like, hey, what do you think of this? Or hey, what can be improved?
How
Even
does
the
that work
programmers, like
then?
even if they're not an artist, you have to just kind of bug everyone to give you feedback and things like that. So
Huh.
those are definitely sometimes you're gonna have that if you plan on working in a smaller studio.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess when you sort of break it down and you look at it, it's kind of like a three-way like trifecta of there's contract work that you can do full time or like remote work I'd lump in there. There's small studios and there's large studios. Um, is it pretty safe to say that it's like something you should experience? Like all three of them should be at least sort of tested at some point. Does that
Sorry,
make any
what?
sense?
Not really. But
I'm all over the place. I
can you
got
just
sick.
rephrase that?
Yes.
There's three types of sort of ways that you can work as a 3D artist, right? You can either be
Yeah,
in a larger studio, sort of with your specific role. You can be in a
yeah,
smaller studio where you're essentially working on a smaller project with a lot more responsibility. And then the third option is working remotely or contract. And each of
yeah,
these things
yeah,
have major learning opportunities to offer, right?
yeah, absolutely. But I think
Is it
I feel
safe to
like the bigger
assume?
studio. I don't know. That's just me because I've already experienced the other two.
Mhm.
But I think working at a bigger studio is just like it's tremendous. Like you learn so much. Like I've learned more in the past 2 months than I've learned in like a year just working at a bigger studio, and I can confidently say that.
How so?
Like just how the industry works, like pipeline wise, like how to do things in a more optimized way. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's different. It's definitely different, and like I said before, you have so many more people to like ask advice for or poke around. You learn so much. It's crazy.
Interesting. I honestly thought it would be the opposite. I thought it would be not that you wouldn't learn a lot in AAA or anything like that, but I thought but when you're sort of tackling everything on your own, it would force you to sort of like
You do
grow.
learn, but sometimes you don't learn the right way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like you kind of just trying to get it done. So you don't learn how to do things like super optimized maybe or anyway, that's my experience. Like I'm sure it's different for everyone else, but for me working at a bigger studio has definitely I've definitely improved.
Hmm. Okay. that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. We do actually have a question from Twitter. I'm gonna reword it a little bit because I think the original question we all can kind of answer in the exact same way. So the original question from a guy named Fuzzball says, should a character artist know how to model vehicles, etc., and should that be on their portfolio? Obviously, that's a
A character artist?
yeah. If you're a character artist, you should focus on characters.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't
That's
need to
it's
focus on
pretty
vehicles.
yeah, and like I wanted to sort of reword this and say if you're applying for a smaller studio, a smaller indie studio, is it more valuable to show a specific skill set, or is it more valuable to show that you're flexible?
I think you should specialize in something. If you're applying for a smaller studio, you
Mhm.
should specialize in something and show that you can do other things, maybe not as well, but you should always show a specialization. I think that packs a I think that's better in my opinion. Like even at a smaller studio, like unless it's super small, they probably won't expect you to do like the characters, the environments, the effects, like whatever else are the animation. So like if you can show that you can specialize in one of those areas, but you want to do other things too, you can kind of show that, hey, I know how to animate even though I'm a character artist. Like things that correlate together. Like they don't expect they shouldn't expect an environment artist to know how to animate characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, what you're saying makes sense. Sorry, I'm just distracted because I think a lot of your friends are asking you something in this chat. I don't really get the reference at all.
I get it.
Ryan, is it? Can we talk about this? Is this okay?
It's RuneScape.
Oh.
Oh my god.
They
I'm not
wanna
reading the
know.
chat, so I don't know what they're saying.
Okay. Normally we don't really segue from this kind of stuff, but yeah, I will quote them directly. Yo, forget all this. Ask him about his OSRS character, Elv Mage.
Oh my god.
And they
Elf
linked
Mage.
they
That's
linked
not what I was
rsplayers.fandom.com/wiki/elvmage.
Go ahead,
Um,
Somar. What are they talking
I mean,
about?
Can you explain this to
yeah,
me?
I mean, I used to
You
make
are a
YouTube
legend.
videos and play RuneScape, so they're referring to that.
You used to make gameplay commentaries too?
No, not commentary. It would be like, like those PvP videos where you're like killing people and there's music in the background, like a montage.
Yeah.
See, Somar, when we ask you about your backstory,
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
give us
this
all
is
the
this is
details.
these are the deets that we need
these
to
are the
know.
deets.
Yeah, you could have been like, I've always been creative, since the days of my RuneScape gameplay commentaries or montages or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to play RuneScape a lot when I was young, and I used to make videos. It was fun.
Cool. And now you just play WoW.
Yeah, I've matured. Yeah, actually, I did play RuneScape a lot last year. My passion for it got rekindled when me and some of my friends decided to play. So it was really fun. Yeah, RuneScape's a great game. Check it out.
Cool. I was always more of like a Club Penguin kind of guy, but
Yo, Club Penguin was great too, but I think they got shut down.
it shut down
Unfortunately,
on my birthday.
did it
That is
really?
like
That is the
salt to
worst
the
birthday
wound right
ever.
there. It was sad.
Rest
How
in
many
peace,
how many
Club Penguin.
accounts did you guys get banned in Club Penguin?
I
That's
never
the
got banned, man.
Yeah, I
I
don't
had
think I
like
ever got banned.
Really? I'm pretty sure you could get banned for literally like the easiest thing, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
Like I was
yeah,
a
I've had
child.
friends who've been banned for doing.
I was the little kid that would play Club Penguin, and I'd just like find a swear word, and I'd just say it like I'd say shit, and then I'd get banned instantly.
It's pretty bad.
So I
Man.
would make I have like 100 Gmail accounts with just random Club Penguin accounts, and I had them all banned.
Is that your origin story?
That's
You
your
saw
That's
the
my
art in
origin
Club
story.
Penguin?
That is what turned me into the artist I am today.
Well, I mean, that's also kind of a cool topic to talk about. Is kind of like everyone at some point probably had a game where they were just like blown away by how it looked, and that's why they wanted to sort of dive into it.
Club Penguin had the best graphics.
Mine was probably RuneScape, to be honest.
RuneScape did blow me away, and actually, that made me really love like MMOs in general, and it's
Hmm.
always been
Yeah.
a dream of mine to work on an MMO someday. So hopefully that dream
Actually, we
comes
have
to
another
fruition.
question to like change the topic away from video games.
We have an actual question.
Oh,
Nice.
um, I'm not gonna word it the same way, but someone in the stream chat asked what the difference is. Well, I'm rewording it, so it's not exactly what he said, but like, what would you say the difference between trim usage in AAA compared to small studio, and also like using I don't know, floating geo normals or
Like
something like that?
optimization in general.
Yeah, like
they
yeah,
probably
like
do it
in
more
terms
in
of
bigger
workflow.
studios, but it really depends on the studio. You can't really say every studio, like I said before, has a different pipeline. So um, I'm sure most studios use all those methods, but maybe differently.
Yeah,
I actually deal with this like pretty much all day every day. So I would actually like to dive into this one a bit. I found that like what you were saying before, Somar, about learning a ton in AAA, like when I actually break it down, I totally agree, because one of the things that I never really did until I started working here um, was sort of having a texture and then modeling around that texture rather than modeling and giving it a texture. And sort of doing that reverse method was never something I was really shown, but it's way
Yeah,
more
you definitely
optimized.
don't learn that in school. At least when I was in school, maybe they teach it now, but it's
yeah, I
definitely not
didn't.
something you learn until you start
Yeah,
working.
like we totally skipped over it, and it's just like having a good trim or having a good texture and modeling around it so good. Like even something as like I could not wrap my head around for the longest time was like, say you have like a wall with like bricks sticking out of it and it's like crumbling and the bricks are like slowly falling out. It's like, oh, how do you texture that? Because part of it is a tiling texture and then it seamlessly transitions into bricks popping out. It's like you get the texture and then you model around it. Um, which is just so foreign, but it's also way more optimized at the same time. So
Yeah.
in AAA, it's like the only way it can function is if it's like hyper optimized.
Well, it's because AAA's got years and years of experience of making things like the right way. Well, sorry, in air quotes, the right way. Because like
Mm-hmm.
obviously some people believe that there's other ways that are more proper, but like this studio, like let's say randomly, I don't know, EA. EA's been making games for a really long time, and they've had a really long time to figure out their favorite way and the most efficient way for them to make games.
Well, I mean, they should probably change it up.
Yeah, well, like,
Hasn't been working out for him
well,
so much.
I think he means in terms of art.
yes, I don't know. Star Wars was good, so I
That's
don't know
I,
what
true.
you
I heard a
say.
lot of great things about the new
Yeah.
Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So, but in comparison, like a small studio, usually small studios aren't around for that long,
Hmm.
right? They're usually fresh. Like, I don't know, they've been around for no more than maybe 5 years or so, and they don't have that much time to develop that kind of workflow.
But the catch is they also have so much more flexibility to change things because we have some things that are just like so hardwired into our workflow that we can't change it. At least definitely not mid project or anything like that. And it's like it could be better, but it's just how we've always done something, so that's how we're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, that definitely does happen. But I think
Just
they try to keep it optimized. Like that's the number one thing at working on a AAA game is just that's what they care about the most. Really, like is just to keep things working properly.
did you ever at your last studio just have like a big pipeline change in the middle of production?
Mm, well, we were using an engine called Amazon Lumberyard, and that engine is not really it's not finished. Like they're still working on it. But we were using it like to the best of its ability, I would say, and there were a lot of things that would just change in the middle of production, and you just had to kind of do things differently just because they decided, hey, like we're gonna change the UI and change the way how the way you import things or whatever the case. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of changes mid production that kind of sucked, but I mean, it's just the name of the game, especially if you're in a smaller studio.
It's interesting. I know that most people, if they're using like Unreal Engine or something, if they start on version 4.12, like that's it. Like, we're on version 4.12
Yeah, it's
until the
really
game's
hard to
out.
just change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Another great point that I'm seeing from the stream is that like with the recent news of Unreal like acquiring Quixel,
hmm
you have you've got small studios who can more easily switch to, I don't know, let's say they were originally in Unity. It's easier for them to switch to Unreal for the next project than, let's say, a big studio. And like kind of in the future, these small studios will have it a lot easier using quick giant library, right?
hmm
The thing that scares me with that though is like a lot of the games will look the same.
That is true.
That does happen,
Yeah.
and that
But
definitely
like
will happen.
what I'm seeing a lot with like small studios usually, well actually not usually, let's say like the ones that actually get mainstream in terms of the games, in terms of popularity, it's usually kind of like the ones with their own style anyways. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Because you could
think
also
of the
argue like every low poly game looks the exact same.
yeah. Think of the most popular indie games from recently, right? They all kind of have their own unique style. You see it and you're like, okay, that's it. That's that, right?
I also think the argument's kind of, it's difficult because this kind of weaves into the same conversation of like, oh, since photo scanning is an option, isn't every like stylized game going to sort of cease to exist? It's like, no, like just because we have certain technology doesn't necessarily mean it's going to extinguish other options. Like people are still going to want to look different and have their own vibe to it.
That is
Even
true. Yeah.
photorealistic things are going to look night and day to something else that's photorealistic.
Yeah.
If they all look the same, it boils down to bad art design or bad art direction in general.
Yeah. And that game won't see the light of day, pretty much.
I mean,
If it's gonna actually, that's right. The game could have some good
Yeah, I
some
mean
good
the art in games
design.
is good, but there's a lot of games with great art that don't play very well, and
That
Yeah.
is
vice
true.
versa. Like going back to RuneScape, the game doesn't look that great, but the mechanics of that game are really addicting and fun.
Let's be honest though, did RuneScape really look that bad back whenever it first launched?
Back when it first launched, no,
Yeah, they
but
just kind of didn't
they
update
just stayed with it,
it.
like. But it's
Yeah,
still such a fun game. Like even though it doesn't look like all the AAA games look now, it's more about the gameplay and less about the the
that's
art.
true.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with Smash, like a lot of people play these
hmm
old Smash games and they don't look that great compared to games now, but the mechanics of the game are just so awesome that people don't care about the way it looks.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I really hope we never get to a point where it's just like, oh, it looks good, whatever. Sacrifice the gameplay. Because we're pretty much already there. Like let's be
Yeah.
real. With the next console generation potentially being the last, as a lot of the rumors are saying, it's just like, well, we've hit it. We've gotten to the point where we can make it look as good as we want. So let's actually turn it around and make the gameplay more fun. I honestly find
I can't see
stylized
anything with
games.
this.
Yeah, I know what you're
Can't.
saying.
It's just no. I don't. I refuse to believe that it's the last generation.
No, I don't think so either. Unless the only way it would work is if like that Stadia style sort of fully took over. But we're not there. Like the internet is just not good enough
Oh
yet.
right. Yeah, if that thing happens, that
We're
could
getting there though.
I could actually believe it. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
could
but
believe it
how
if
long
it's the
did it take?
last
How long
generation.
have the current gen consoles been out?
almost 8 years, I think, 7 or 8.
Yeah, so let's say they release the next gen and it lasts 8 years. I think after that we'll probably have
Internet will be good.
internet. Yeah, internet will be better, and I think
It's hard to say because we already have good internet. It's just that
it's just not available to everyone.
yeah, and it's too expensive. It's just
But
like
in 8 years, you never know.
that's
Can
true.
be
I honestly
It-
think
more
I wouldn't be
accessible.
like this sort of push for games could potentially even be enough to sort of like push that over the edge.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. Who knows?
Actually, yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see like how everything changes in that sense. Like whenever these new consoles that are coming out, like how long do you guys think they'll last?
Well, yeah, every generation is about 8 years.
Were they all like 8 years? Every generation?
I
More
don't
or
know
less.
too much about like pre PS3, but PS3 was about 8 years, and so was the PS4. So
Okay.
I imagine so. I don't know.
I feel like it'll
Even
be
if it's
longer.
5 years, like technology changes so rapidly that
That's true.
it's still feasible that in 5 years we won't need consoles anymore. But you never know.
I don't like that. I like physical stuff. I like having an actual device and something to look
Well, maybe
forward
they'll
to.
come out
And
with a device that lets you stream Stadia stuff to your uh, TV or something. You
Uh,
never know.
you can stream your Stadia stuff to your TV.
yeah, like with the
Oh, that
Chromecast,
already
but
exists.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Chromecast. Yeah, I actually I ordered the Premier Edition. Mine comes this week actually. I can probably let you
I've
guys
heard.
know how I feel about
I
it.
was just watching reviews on it, man. Good luck. I mean, like it just right now at least. Well, I think it's like super early on. Is it officially out yet?
It is officially out, yes. It's
Okay.
it's kind of like a beta test, and actually, the people who reviewed it,
hmm
like Washington Post, I mean, their review, I don't take that with like any seriousness
I
because
don't think
they're
people are
owned by
going to
Amazon,
Washington.
right?
yeah.
Amazon reviewing a Google product.
well, Amazon's working on their own sort of solution to that as
Yeah,
well, aren't they?
also that, right?
Yeah.
Like Digital Foundry I've always gone to for these very like techie questions. And
Yeah.
they're very unbiased. And I watched their recent review of it and it's pretty good. It's pretty impressive. Like for the hardcore gamer, if you want to be playing a game with like no lag whatsoever, obviously console's better.
hmm
But this is like let's say you want to play I mean, I know I'm going to play let's say Tomb Raider on your work PC without installing Tomb Raider on your work PC.
Yeah, I think
On
it's
your lunch break.
at
I'm
this
gonna say
point.
on your lunch break.
Yeah,
That's like, pull it out during production or something. But yeah,
at
like you
this
just open
point,
up Google Chrome.
it's only viable for single player experiences.
And also
No
like
one.
recently people have been saying that there's like they've been playing Destiny and everyone I've spoken to that has it, they've
Mhm.
had little to no issues.
That's weird because I like this morning I watched Game Ranks. Like they're sort of like my go to review people, and they were saying like they tested it on a bunch of different Wi-Fi speeds and like it was just so inconsistent.
Yeah, it's maybe they did it because I heard like a lot of the reviews before release, they were
hmm
garbage. But all the people that have reviewed after release, they're saying it's good. So maybe like something changed in between those times because release was I think Monday.
Yeah, I want it to be good. I hope it's good.
Yeah.
If we could push towards that, and I don't have to buy a new graphics card every couple of years,
Yeah,
that'd be
Yeah.
nice.
and also have to like upgrade your storage or like remove games that you don't want to remove from your library.
Yeah, I also think it is just kind of scary in general though because it's not going to cover everything. There's still going to be exclusives on certain consoles, and then it's like there's already so many things to subscribe to, and it's
For
just
sure.
it's too much, man. Nintendo's never going to jump onto that. They don't know how online even works. How am I going to play Pokemon or Smash Bros or whatever? You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like that's always going to be held back, and then if the other consoles do it, they're going to have their own exclusive stuff going on. And then there's Netflix and Crunchyroll and Disney Plus, and like there's just too much stuff to subscribe to, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're kind of getting a bit off topic
Uh,
when it comes to like I love being
Can't
off
be
topic.
helped.
Like I
Can't be
love
helped.
having these conversations, but
yeah.
this is a game art discussion.
Exactly. Somar,
Yes.
tell us about game art.
Okay. You make games and you make them look pretty, and yeah, that's game
Is
art.
that what you do, Somar? Do you make games look pretty? Is that what your
Yes,
job is?
that
It's
is what I do.
debatable,
That is my
honestly.
job.
Yeah.
Actually, I see a good question. What happens to the employees after production is done for a game in small studio versus a big
Ooh,
studio?
that's actually a really good
That's
question.
yeah, that's a hard-hitting one.
I guess it depends what happens to the game. For a smaller studio, like that's your livelihood, right?
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
a bigger studio, there's a little more leeway, unless that studio is going broke, and then there'll probably be layoffs. But if you're in a studio that doesn't usually lay people off, I guess you just work on the next project.
That's true. Like at our company now, like they're really the reason people really like it is because they cycle people in and out. Like there's always work to be done because there's so many projects to go through.
Yeah.
But at a small studio, it's fuzzy because it's different for every country as well. Like I know in Canada, like there's enough public funding from the government that can keep you afloat.
Yeah.
And I was just reading in Germany as well. Apparently, they're doing like several tens of millions of dollars funneled into specifically game art, not even just art, or not game art, but the gaming industry rather than just the art industry. So it's like some countries, like if you're a new studio, like they'll take care of you. But it's definitely way riskier than if you're in a larger studio.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good question though.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, actually, I have a question for myself here. So we know you've been to a few different studios, right?
Yeah.
Is there a specific studio, like transition between one studio that was like difficult for you? Like
Honestly,
let's say from studio 1 to 2, or like was it difficult or like
it depends. I think the the worst thing about that is just um like if you have to move, like for example, my previous studio, I had to move to another city. And then when I got this job, I had to move back to Toronto. So it's like, I guess that's the hardest part, is just moving city to city.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I guess another thing is just uh, getting used to the pipeline of this new studio. Like, I'm doing things that I hadn't done before, or I'm doing things in a way that I hadn't done them before. And that usually takes some time to get used to it. So I guess that's the hardest part of transitioning, I would say.
yeah. There was
Hmm.
no like different, like vastly different cultures that you had to adjust to, or
Yeah, but I feel like, I mean, for me anyway, it's not hard to get adjusted to some cultures. Like in my experience, it's just don't be an asshole and you'll be okay.
Yeah, well, when you
okay.
first came in, all I could think about was like, damn, this guy adjusted way faster than I did.
Well, Dylan, it's because he's not an asshole.
That's true. That's so true.
He just said
That's
it
not what I
himself.
meant, but yeah, like you just, I don't know. I've always had an easy time adjusting to different cultures, I guess, or yeah, like it's not, for me, it's not that hard. So I guess I can't really say, or I can't really give much advice on it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
I have. Oh, go
really
ahead,
well
Ryan.
answered. Nah, I was just gonna say that was a good answer.
Okay, I was just gonna say I kind of have one. Oh, you got a new follower. Nice. I had a question, and then I think we'd probably start to wind this down a little bit. But for people on the outside who haven't worked in games whatsoever, would you recommend for them to start indie and transition into AAA, or do you think if their final goal happens to be AAA, to just focus on that and just go for that directly?
Honestly, I think you should just take what you can get and get as much experience as you can. I don't think people in our industry kind of have the luxury, unless they have a lot of experience, to be picky about what kind of jobs they get.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a smart move to um, have a studio in your mind that you really want to work at and kind of tailor your portfolio to that. But if you get a job at another studio that is not that studio, I think you should get it, or take it rather.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's no like, oh, you should start here, you should start there. I think it's more like just take what you can get for at least the first year or two, just so you can get as much experience as you can, and then it becomes easier to find jobs after that, because like it kind of sucks, but most studios don't really want to hire students. They want people with experience.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like where we work at, it's really great. They give students a lot of opportunity, but it's not like that at every studio.
Mhm.
There's internships and things like that, but if you want to be like a full-time professional game artist or whatever, I think you just take what you can get in the beginning and just build that experience. And the more jobs you do or the more different projects you work on, the easier I guess it would be to transition from studio to studio. Like maybe that's why for me it's easier to get adjusted to the cultures because I've transitioned so much.
Mhm.
Um, and it also builds your social skills, which is a huge part of working in games. Like you don't really learn that in school, right? Like they don't really.
Yeah.
There's no class about how to be like how to be a professional or how to when is a good time to make a joke or whatever. But
Oh, totally.
those
Like
are
your
those are
soft
the things you
skills.
learn. Like I don't want to be an asshole, but I've worked with a lot of people who just don't have any social skills.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. It's a weird industry where it's almost like a lot of those people are drawn towards it.
Yeah.
Because like
Like
if you're naturally on a computer all day, like you're gonna find those people for sure.
Yeah, so I think it's
it's
really good to learn those social skills and like put
Yeah.
yourself out
yeah.
there and put yourself in situations where you have to be social.
Oh,
Like you can work
100%.
on your
Yeah.
portfolio all day and be a great artist, but at the end of the day, if you're like an unpleasant person to be around,
Mhm.
you're gonna have a hard time keeping a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really weird because like everyone that works in games is a nerd. Like let's be
Oh yeah.
honest. We're all nerds. We all tend to prefer to like, well, it's not all, but a lot of us tend to prefer just to like sit at home play video games, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's why we're in games.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, you have to like, it's one of the most social jobs you can
Oh,
find,
absolutely.
right? Like,
I feel like
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely like up there in the top social jobs. Like you have to really put yourself out there, especially
Well,
to
it's
just even get a job.
yeah,
yeah,
and even like for our pipelines specifically, like we're both in the middle of things. We're handing it off, we're getting stuff from other people, and there's no right or wrong answer to anything. So it's like, how do you get
yeah,
people on both ends of the pipeline to be as happy as possible when there's no like black or white correct way to do things? It's you
teamwork
definitely need
makes
to
the
have
dream work.
exactly. You need some sort of social skills. Um, those soft skills are definitely something that need to be a bit more highlighted for
They're
sure.
huge. Yeah, they're really huge.
Hmm. So yeah, get out of here, nerds.
Just it's
Skedaddle,
okay to be a nerd,
quads.
and it's
I was
okay to
actually
be quiet, but it's not okay to be an asshole,
oh
basically.
totally. I'm just joking around. Like I'm pretty awkward like a lot of the time, and definitely prefer to stay on the computer when I can. But I was just memeing yesterday because we're doing a Secret Santa between a couple of like people on our floor at work, and I drew out of a hat someone's name. Like I've never even heard of the guy. I've never met him before, but I can just like have a
I gotta
loose
try to get to
idea.
know him.
Yeah, I'm like I have a loose idea as to what they're like. They probably like video games and they probably like stuff to do with computers. I don't know. Like there's definitely some overlapping traits. Yeah. There's a lot of
Be
stuff going
social.
on
Be
outside. I
social,
think you can
kids.
hear it.
It's good to make friends.
Yep.
Hmm. All right, man. Does anyone else have anything to add last minute? We're just about to hit 1 hour.
Oh yeah. Wow. All these podcasts always feel like they're going a lot shorter than you'd
I
think,
know.
right?
It
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like 20
No, this
minutes.
felt pretty fast, to be honest.
Yeah, it's almost as if like
It's
I
almost
don't
as
know.
if we're having fun.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it's almost as if we're using our social skills.
See, there you
Whoa.
go.
Huh?
Comes around full circle. Cool. All right. Well, I guess if no one else has any last minute questions in the chat, like I know I see one from Mo asking if small studios use Houdini. Um, I'm gonna guess that your
It
studio
really
wasn't
depends.
using
It really
Houdini.
depends.
Yeah, mine
Yeah,
probably doesn't even know who Houdini is. Let's be honest.
exactly. It's super specific to the project.
Yeah,
But who knows? Maybe in the future it's gonna be more
yeah, maybe.
common. I don't know. It totally depends on what you're doing. That's such a broad question.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, if we're wrapping things up, then thanks to both you guys for sitting down and chatting. Thanks for everyone in the stream for coming to talk. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify or any of that stuff, thanks for tuning in. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube channel or tweet me or any questions like that. We'll
Also,
love to go over them.
yeah, you can definitely tune into the stream because today we had a lot of people asking questions in the stream chat, and I'm sure you guys heard, oh yeah, blah blah from the stream has a question. We said that a
Yeah.
lot today.
Lots of RuneScape.
Yeah, if you have a question for a specific guest that we have, we usually announce our guests ahead of time. If you have a question for that guest, make sure to tune in for the stream, and we'll get your question in there, as long as it's not like a bad question, obviously.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, anyways, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Any shout outs there, Somar?
I'd just like to shout out the Pixel Pusher podcast. It's pretty great.
Woo.
Well,
Thanks,
thanks.
man.
My boy Tiedie over here has a cool channel where he makes tutorials and teaches you things. Let's definitely check that out. Smash
Never
that
heard of
like
him.
button.
I should check him out.
Smash that like button.
Yeah, I guess right now I don't really have any shout outs just because I'm so
You don't
busy.
want to
and,
thank your
I
mom?
don't. Oh yeah, thanks, mom. Actually, my mom has been super supportive through working in this industry. You know, sometimes it's hard to find work, but
That's true. It's great.
Yeah.
so thanks, Mom.
No parents really want to
Thank
hear I'm gonna work in video games
Yeah.
and art.
Oof.
Yep.
Two least stable jobs.
Yeah.
But
Thank
no,
you,
that's good.
Somar's mom.
Thanks so much, Mom. And on that note, we're gonna end off episode 5. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you whenever the next one's out. Shouldn't be as long as the last break, so cool.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
See ya.